cold at the touch, dead in the eyes, no signs of life no more. I put your love under the knife. Leave me to die here all alone. No signs of life no more, no. A crying dove may never fly. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, 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 oh. Just black and white. No more. Black and white, just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, 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 oh. Just black and white. Black and white.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Simracersworld TV for round 5 of the SRW NASCAR Cup Series, the Chaz Draycott 300 here from Bristol. My name is Chaz. I'm joined once again by Joe Peak here in the commentary booth. An absolute pleasure it is, and welcome to all of you for a eventful race, I think I can say safely, and that's the only safe thing we'll have tonight. It's the first short track of this season. I'm thinking back, it is the first short track we've done all together, so it's going to be an exciting one. Joe, what's your expectations for tonight?
Well, there's expectations and there's hope, I think. And expectations are it's going to be a bit of a tough one, especially for those who haven't raced as many short tracks. Hope is that we get some great racing, because this is a track that has variable banking in it. And it's recently done a pretty good job of offering up either line, depending on your setup. The races that I've witnessed here in the past month or so have had drivers picking the top, picking the bottom. So that usually promotes plenty of opportunities to try and overtake if you've got pace and good battles to start to erupt. So hopefully that'll mean that we'll see plenty of action over these 300 laps.
Hopefully so. And with that said, I think it's time we have a quick glance at the championship standings, because it is indeed a very, very close fight at the head of affairs. Matty Sufi with 164 points to his name, just 4 points ahead of Hendrik de Grave in second for Flemish, of course. Ian Roots third with 150, 14 points separating himself and teammate Matty Sufi ahead. Then Kim Behate on 149, and John Barnes in fifth as well there with 137. Not out of it. Same you could say for John Tosting and Austin Greatrix as well. Tim Perry at 129 points. He's still not going to be back until the next round, which is going to be the road track of the season, the race at Watkins Glen. Going to be an interesting one as well, and one that I'm really looking forward to seeing these next-gen machines at. Having a quick glance further down, it is indeed also a tight battle for positions in the lower order. You can see there Paul Gosling, the privateer indeed, who's picked up a win to his name, but hasn't had too much luck in the remainder of the races. And then, of course, the team standings with Flemish Sim Sports leading 11 points clear of Quantum. Then a bit of a gap down to Simracersworld Esports Bravo. The Alpha team a bit further down on 264 than Team Brit, E-Team Brit A on 232, Boosted on 226, and few teams obviously get to enjoy that major season success, you could say here. But nonetheless, Joe, we also have had a qualifying session already, and I think I should be able to produce the results of said session. Here it is. Matty Sufi on pole position, 9,000ths of a second clear of John Tosting. Then John Barnes in third ahead of Austin Greatrix, and he told us last week, and now I don't remember. God damn it. We got Stuart Musselwhite in fifth place there ahead of Kim Behate, Ian Roots, Paul Gosling, Kurt van Honacker, and Adam Wright. Rounds off the top 10 of a 15-car grid tonight. Michael Tyler 11th ahead of Hendrik de Grave, Simon Benus, James Hall, and Max Spooner. And as we also spoke about before tonight's broadcast and the race indeed, Joe, the fact that we might have a lower participation round, well, tonight could indeed be the track to have it at.
Exactly. 15 cars is going to be plenty. So for those worried about not getting enough action, it's a half miler. And on top of that, it's one of the steepest half milers in not just NASCAR, but in the country as well. It's been renowned for decades now as being one of the quickest of the short tracks here in NASCAR racing. So drivers are going to have plenty of chances to try and challenge one another and get involved with one another. In fact, honestly, if we get some long green flag runs, don't be surprised if the leaders come upon traffic pretty quickly. So traffic management could be a big talking point.
And certainly with a track only half a mile in length, that really isn't a lot of tarmac to separate front from bottom pack indeed. And we're talking lap times of, well, under 15 seconds as well. So we're going to do about 4 laps a minute here, which to any European sounds absolutely insane. We're on board with Paul Gosling. That gives you a pretty good idea, I think, of what awaits the drivers as well. I did a few laps as well coming into the session here. And one thing I got to say I had troubles with as well was just managing coming into the pits here and figuring out, because it's a bit of a special pit lane layout, and I think that's something that Joe knows quite a bit more than I do about.
Exactly, yeah. So they have the 2 separate pit lanes, but the good news is we've only got 15 cars, so that means that they won't be pitting on opposite sides, which can sometimes cause some inequality with them using the 2 different ones instead of the one long pit lane. The thing about that pit entry, though, and this is going to sound really silly until you actually get out there and get racing, it's easy to actually lose track of which side you're on because it looks so similar and you're just doing laps so rapidly. So you really got to pay attention on if you're on the front stretch or back stretch and which side your pit is on. Obviously, this one, everybody's on the same one on the front stretch, but you don't want to accidentally go down the wrong one, lose yourself time or position, even if it is under caution. As you can see, James Hall having to make that transition down from the steep 32-degree banking there towards the bottom down to where it gets a little bit more flat, and have to be coming down from a decent amount of speed. It's not as super fast as you get at the 1.5 milers, but we're talking still at 116 to 120 miles an hour that they've got to slow down from in a very short time.
And that's one of the things that also surprised me about this track, is just how fast it felt through the corners. I had expected much more braking needed when entering the corners, but you're really able to carry a lot of speed. Oh, as Ian Roots is having to find his way around on whoever that was facing the wrong way. Not quite sure, but certainly that was a close call and a nice bit of reactions from Ian Roots. And I think that's very much going to be part of the skill set of a successful night tonight here. If you got to have those sharp reactions ready, don't you?
Absolutely. It's also a bit tight around here, not just because the lap length is short, but it's kind of a canyon all around that you see on the front stretch with that pit wall to the inside, and the way that it's even got banking on the straights. It kind of sends you to the inside. And when a car hits that, often you'll see them bounce back off into the racing line. So when wrecks erupt, even when they're on the straights and not on the corners, they kind of clog the track very quickly. So you got to be on your toes, and you got to be practiced at getting on the brakes, because, well, have you ever tried braking on a bit of straight banking? Car doesn't want to go straight, so it's going to spin out really easily.
And of course, coupled with the fact that these cars still don't have ABS, of course, that's it's a let's say a spicy cocktail. I'd say it's like a hot sauce. You got to be careful with the appliance. Like, really, I have like a habanero hot sauce that's properly hot, and that's something that I think is quite a lot more common in the States than it is over here in Europe. We got to get that stuff specially imported and stuff. I think you have it a bit more readily available. I'm a little bit jealous on that side of things.
We have entire hot sauce sections in some grocery stores. For what it's worth.
Sounds like a little quarter of heaven to me.
Depends on your taste. Also depends on which side of your body you ask.
Yes, that is true indeed. But that brings me back to the point I was making before, and the hot sauce analogy of applying the brakes here in a NASCAR on a short track oval. It has to be done with finesse. It has to be done with panache, as you would call it in French, and that's something that I think we will see indeed tonight as well. Because if you lock them up, well, there's not going to be any more grip. There's not going to be much to do about it. The practice session has now ticked over. We have the grid order on screen as well. Once again, if we could just get the rest of the graphics to quieten down for a second there. As we went through before, Matty Sufi on pole position with a 14.337 second lap, ahead of John Tusting, John Barnes, Austin Greatorix, and Stuart Musselwhite. Then it's Kim Behate, Ian Roots, Paul Gosling, Kurt van Honacker, and Adam Wright. That is your top 10. with Michael Tyler 11th and Hendrik de Grave in 12th place. De Grave, of course, is pretty well up there in the overall standings, but gonna have to fight his way through the bunch today if he's in hopes of picking up 8 points. Simon Benutz is let's hope for him, lucky 13th on the grid, ahead of James Hall in 14th and Max Spooner. I think the bottom 2 cars there haven't been out in qualifying to set a time, so they're taking what they, I assume and think maybe expect to be the safe approach here.
Yeah, it's a long race. You got 300 laps to try to work your way to the front, so they probably want things to kind of cool down and then start to see if they can make inroads on the leaders. Not going to be quite as easy as what we saw at Vegas. But like I said earlier, you can go low, can go high. It kind of depends on how the car is handling at the time and which lane feels best for you. So keep a watch out for those 2 guys, and we'll see if they can start eventually getting up to the front.
It's indeed a double formation lap, isn't it, here?
Yes, anything under 1 mile gives you 2 laps.
Because that's something I remember from my limited experience with racing the street stocks, the entry-level oval racing car here in iRacing. That is a whole lot of fun to do, and I can only recommend, if you haven't tried it out, you give it a bit of a go. But you sometimes do get caught out by some of the strange things, at least if you're used to a different sort of racing. Anyways, we will have the pace car peeling off in a amount of seconds that's not too great indeed. It's going to be a few seconds before it peels off to the left into the pit lane, and it's going to be Matty Sufi controlling the field. There it is, and I would suspect him to go sort of early. Let's see. Oh, very much no. It's the opposite here as he waits and leaves us as late as possible there. There's a bit of a surprise to me, but he does get well away. And let's see if it's the same case for the rest of the field here, Joe.
Yeah, Dustin and Sufi didn't really go at all, and those behind him actually had to check up a little bit. Barnes managed to get his way into second, so he has already got around the outside of that 999, but it's very quickly single file, so that's a good sign that everybody understands they just need to kind of settle in here for the first few laps.
Yeah, it's one of those races, and we've seen it before, I think, in the other races, when the tracks are tight and sort of technical, these ovals. This field of drivers have been quite good at just taking a relatively cautious approach, saying that we've also seen some hefty racing here on the opening laps. But it's... Oh, sorry, go on, Joe.
I was going to say, we're looking back here at really the first big pack that we've got with Greater X up at the front of it. He's trailing Behate, Musselwhite, Gosling, Wright, and De Greve. So he's got some company, and it looks like we're seeing some moves behind them. Oh, no, sorry, that was a near spin for Adam Wright.
I think he managed to catch that one. Let's see if we can just get a bit of a second view. This is from the very early moments of the race. Not get an incident on that one on my event viewers. I'm gonna have to try and single it out.
I think he did smack the inside wall, unfortunately. And it'll do a little bit of damage, but not too much. There it is right there.
Oh, yeah. Indeed, he did just pick it up there on the inside, and he's come into the pits for early repairs. So an unlucky start, to say the very least, for Adam Wright.
Yeah, and he's going to have to wait for a caution to get that lucky dog to get back on the lead lap. He's absolutely going to go multiple laps down here.
Whoa! Almost getting wild here as well for Stuart Musselwhite. I think he scraped that paint on the outside wall. And you mentioned that, Joe, and it's a good observation and one of a different level of expertise. But the fact that when you hit the wall, you have that banking on the straight, it really unsettles the car in a different way, and that's really something to be keenly awake for. Two Flemish cars here, currently 5th and 7th. We gotta say Hendrik de Grave here, he's done well to rise through the order already from 12th to 7th in the space of 13 laps. Doesn't sound impressive until you take into consideration that a lap just takes 14 seconds, so that's what it is. But you also see from the dynamics of racing here that it's quite different from as he tries to get his nose in there, and you understand why, because it's really not easy to get a run on people because the straights are really short, and usually on ovals you sort of have the time to get a run and to get alongside people. Here it seems to be a very different kind of racing.
Exactly, a little poke to the inside there from Kim in the 86. It really comes to corner exits and less to your braking prowess into the corner, especially because there's very little braking, honestly, into these turns. And we're now on board with Hendrik in that 87 looking ahead. Just a little bit of a peek once again around the outside from Kim, and this is what we were looking for. The 86 is going to be able to get some overlap.
There it is on the outside, a little bit of a slidey moment for the Quantum car as well. That's Greater X maybe not finding it to his liking, having to stick so low and going too wide. And Behade, oh, there we go, Greater X spins out. He's on the apron there, so I don't think it's going to bring out a caution.
He did smack the wall once again, but he's coming into the backstretch pits, though. Oh. I told you he's going to have to go completely around, so he'll lose even more time here.
That's rather unfortunate. As the leaders here, Matty Sufi, John Barnes, still basically glued together here. And I think Barnes got a decent run here to at least get on the inside, on the low side of Sufi. Sufi seems to get a poor run, though, onto the back straight. And with that, John Barnes is into the lead in that 777. 999 of John Tusting, I think that is on the tail. The second of the 3 Quantum cars. And it's about 2.6 seconds down to Kim Behade. I've been wondering about another thing here, Joe, because initially I would expect the tire wear to be quite hefty here, but then when I did a few laps and also after realizing just how much banking there is and how steep it is out there, I take it the tire wear isn't going to be that much of a factor here?
Not usually. What it will come down to is what lines you tend to race. Now, the downside to trying to hit those inside lines as we look at Gosling back in 5th is that's going to chew them up more, because I was incorrect earlier. It's 26 degrees down at the bottom of the track versus the 30 at the top. So you're putting more lateral force into those tires, even though it's that shorter distance. So you tend to burn them off a little more. If you see guys riding the high line for a long time, that tends to mean they're trying to hold on to their stuff for a little longer, as the 5 is going to have a good shot here at 4th. Not quite done, though.
I think he's just about going to get it in there, yeah. He does, and that was actually a pretty decent move, you got to say, there from Paul Gosling, who goes high, then slingshots down, and uses that extra momentum to just get the nose inside. That's a tactique that we haven't really seen before, basically because it just things work on a different scale here, on a smaller scale.
Yeah, and really what you got to do in this is try to learn how to diamond off the corner exit so that you can really get on the throttle as quick as you can and straight line it, because like I said, it's those corner exits that will pay you back better dividends. So Gosling's got that sussed out. He's up to 4th and a second up to John Tusting. So I think he's gaining some on there. So we got another pass here.
That's Michael Tyler, who's gone the highway around Ian Roots, really carrying the speed there. Might also just be the fact that some of these drivers aren't really willing to go too deep into it at this early stage of the race. Completed 30 laps, that's a 10th of the full race distance here. So should we go through without any caution periods, we're looking at about an hour and 10 minutes of racing. And of course, that might get prolonged.
Sorry, just saw Greaterix hit the wall coming into 3. This time he made it into the right pit lane, but I'm guessing didn't completely get his damage repaired. There you see it. Unfortunately, so that orange cone there, that actually marks what is considered a safe pit entry. He didn't hit that commitment cone on the right side, and that means he's probably also going to get a penalty, which, never mind, actually, he's exited out of the car.
It's been a tough start for Greatorex, to say the very, very least here tonight. We're watching the 87 of De Grave and the 86 of Kim Behaid. De Grave has basically just gone past on Behaid. You can see Behaid in that high line. This is very much a team game for him, I think. Gonna make sure they both get to the end of the race. De Grave seems to have good pace about him as well, as he's moving up the order here. As up here, it's Paul Gosling now making the move on the 999 of John Tusting here.
Wow, Paul definitely quicker in his race pace than he seemed to be able to get in his qualifying. You're going to see a look under. Nope, Tusting thought about it, then thought better of it. And they're going to go by, is this a lapped car? Yeah, that's James Hall, who's just going to stay out of the way.
Musselwhite passed on Ian Roots. That's the 18 of Musselwhite, who gets a little close to one another there at the exit, but actually wanted to see the pass from Paul Gosling. Yet again, manages to get some really good runs out of the corners here. Full commitment on the low side there, keeps the speed. And makes it stick relatively quickly as well. Here as well, it seems Tusting is struggling a little bit. He's now falling into the clutches of the Flemish cars as well. There's 7.5 seconds down on John Barnes, which means it's basically already half a lap from our leader. It's going around at a quick pace indeed. He was 1/10 of a second faster than Matty Sufi on the last lap alone, Joe. That's a rather impressive pace here.
Something about what he's doing is allowing those tires to last a little better than his rivals, I think, because that's what we're seeing with Tusting dropping back quite a bit. In fact, I think he's under threat as well, at least was for a moment, as the 87 got inside him but couldn't make it stick. But yeah, it's you got to be careful. You can't go like a bat out of hell here on tracks like these and just chew up your tires. You got to kind of be very easy with your inputs and carry your momentum into the corners rather than try to muscle your way around.
And this new next-gen machine, although it's of course not been rolled out in real life yet, but it seems to empathize some of these, or emphasize, I'm sorry, some of these, I don't know if a car can have any empathy for people, but it emphasizes...
for those that take care of it.
Well, that's a good place. Maybe mechanics would be the people that they really care about. That's a good point indeed. But no, the way that the car is reacting to inputs, it sort of likes being driven lightly and being rather gentle on the inputs, and it's complementary to a track like this as well. Here comes De Grave though on the inside, so they are side by side now. More or less, he just manages to get in there. Oh, well, that's going to be a bit dangerous if you overshoot it, which is basically what he just did.
And look how much time he lost there. He falls a couple car lengths off of him, so it's looking like he's really got to set it up for a decisive move, or else he's just going to put himself farther back, and then Kim will have a good shot at trying to overtake. He's going to look at the high side. Maybe he's going to cut back here. No, he's going to stay up high. Oh, got awful close to the wall. He's putting a lot of trust into Tusting to make sure that he doesn't drift out into him, and this looks more like he's got it.
Yes, indeed. Made it up into 4th place now, so that's 2/4 of the field gone through. That is a
way. Sorry, Paul Gosling's already caught up to Sufi now. He's looking at 2nd place here soon.
Paul Gosling has driven like a bat out of hell here, but he's managed to do so in a controlled manner. Sufi is just 0.8 of a second ahead now. We're going to be looking with interest at the last lap. Gosling had a bit of traffic to come by on. On their best laps, they're exactly a tenth apart, the top three, in favor of John Barnes. Interestingly, though, that was another gap, though. It does seem like John Barnes he's still quicker, but his pace, of course, is falling off as well. They're into the 15s on the last few laps here. But of course, even just a few hundredths of a second as well, a lap here is going to make a difference relatively quickly.
It will, absolutely. And, you know, last time at Las Vegas, we talked a lot about how you can take a gamble trying to undercut your rivals and get some time. It's even more of a gamble here because with only a half a mile, you're probably going 2-3 laps down if you come in early. And if that yellow does come out, well, then you're really stuck. You have to hope for multiple cautions just to get back on the lead lap.
That's a good point. It just takes 14, 15 seconds of a gap to get lapped. That's absolutely nothing. Behate also now through on John Tusting. Let's see what happened and how it happened. Behate squeezing in. Just both of the Flemish cars are putting a lot of trust into John Tusting.
Yeah, I was going to say, you almost gave him the chrome horn.
Yeah, might as well call him John Trusting by now, because seems to be a trustworthy fella in the racing sense. Back to live pictures we'll go, and the fact that Matty Sufi is now just half a second ahead of Paul Gosling.
Yeah, this is where Paul has gotten it down to about 0.4 of a second. He's been chipping away at it. He's been keeping within about a tenth of John Barnes' time, so I don't think he's going to catch the 777. But this second place definitely looks doable.
Absolutely so. I'd be surprised if he wasn't able to get in there somehow.
Riding about a lane higher right now compared to Sufi. Let's see if they do the same here in 3 and 4. Yeah, so I think Sufi's just kind of eating up his stuff a little bit quicker because he's taking that shallower line. He might want to move up a lane, especially seeing how Gosling is doing there halfway up the track, just kind of making a compromise between the top and the bottom, because it's certainly allowing him to continue to close that down now to within, it's almost 2 car lengths.
Really carrying the speed and seems to be able to do so consistently. It's working wonders. Sufi takes a narrower line altogether. I think
it's an interesting.
I just wanted to say I think Paul Gosling is onto something here.
I think he is too, and it's an interesting thing with oval racing, because it's when you're on the attack, you're trying to do what the others in front of you aren't. You're trying to find the grip where they haven't found it yet. When you're ahead, if you see someone coming up, you want to go where they go, because you want to force them off the line that they prefer, make life harder for them. So that's why I'm saying right now, Sufi really has to get up to that higher line and force Paul to try and get to the bottom or very top of this track. As are they being caught? Yeah, this is Adam Wright a few laps down here.
And Tusting is now falling into the clutches of Stuart Musselwhite, then up ahead Gosling, indeed Adam Wright, and then Matty Sufi. So I think that Adam Wright unlapping himself. He was way back.
He was in the pits 12 laps ago, so he's on fresh rubber. And this gives us a good idea of what that fresh rubber is worth. But he did have an incident early on, has had to take a lot of repairs. So he's not in this race. He's just basically cruising around seeing if he could pick up any scraps from those who wreck.
Seeing how the fastest lap set in the race so far is around the 14.3 mark. How these same cars are lapping around 15.5 seconds now. 1 second around here. That's massive. That tire stop might just come into play.
I mean, the math on that is easy. In 15 laps, you're going to get your lap back. But again, during those 15 laps, you're vulnerable. That's only if you go 1 lap down. You got to make 2 laps back at some point.
That's a good point. I think they'll be wanting to stretch it as well as much as possible for that track position. If of course it makes sense. We still haven't seen a caution, and I think that's a little bit of a surprise, if nothing else than to us here, as we spoke about as well before the race here. We expected a few caution periods tonight, given the nature of the track in itself.
I'm glad to see them be able to get good racing, and it's not everybody just kind of cruising around. There's been some good battles out there. As Sufi, well, now he's starting to keep Gosling at bay. Maybe Paul used up his stuff, finally running that quicker pace, and it's evening out here because he's hovering at about half a second back.
Seems like Sufi's also starting to take a higher approach and coming down towards the lower banking on the exit. And that's interesting, because that would also, I think at least, be what you'd call the ideal racing line, is to come in a little bit higher, use the banking, and then minimize the distance traveled by meeting the apex at a late stage.
Yeah, typically that's usually what you see guys run, and I'm seeing that a little bit with some of these drivers. Not as much as I would have thought, though. Looks like Gosling definitely doing it. Coming up high and then coming back down real low. It can sometimes be a bit subtle, the way it manifests itself. As we watch from Sufi, yeah, you can just see how often he'll come in just a little up and then come back down about half a lane to try and square off the corner.
One thing I love, this is one of the only tracks, if not the only track that I've ever seen at least, where we can cover the entire track from one camera without without any real weirdness. So, of course, if we had a bit of a bigger field, it would make more sense, but it is still pretty cool here. Stuart Musselwhite still on the tail of John Tusting. He hasn't really managed to make anything happen from him. You could wonder now, coming in towards a third of the way through this race, 20 minutes they've raced now, so you would expect that. Oh, as Musselwhite just hits the wall there on the high side. And I don't really see any reason for it here. Ian Roots has gone into the pits as well. Benus is in, but I think that's for repairs. I'm not going to be able to recall pictures, but you can just see a slight scrape of the wall there from Stuart Musselwhite. That's one thing I want. Oh, that's just Tusting. Tusting has hit the wall as well. But in a somewhat... this is all happening all of a sudden. I think that car is carrying some damage here.
I suspect the tires are starting to go away. If initially I thought Stewart did it because he was distracted, which might still be the case because he hit the wall in the middle of the straightaway and not coming off the exit, unless he was still trying to catch the car. Because now that I'm watching them a little closer, you'll see little tail wags coming off of them. So yeah, the grip could be going away. Roots is back out. He is 2 laps down. Let's see, has he set a competitive lap yet? No, not yet. We got to wait for him to come around again.
Luckily, that won't be long, as Paul Gosling is starting to lose time now on Matty Sufi. These drivers are still lapping around 0.2 of a second slower. It's 0.2 of a second slower than the leading car. John Barnes is absolutely blitzing it, and he's about to lap second and third place as well. He's only got Hendrik de Grave, Paul Gosling, and Matty Sufi yet to go. And what an opening stint of the race it's been from John Barnes here.
Keeping an eye on the laps from Roots as we keep the cameras on the 777. And Roots is not running as quickly as I thought he would. He's low 15s, but he's still going to be a little quicker. And I think Tusting knows that, as John is our latest in. Here's Roots, and there's the comparison to that grip.
Can see a bit of damage on Ian's car as well. Gotta wonder if that's got anything to do with the lack of pace. That might just be superficial. A bit of paint scrape, more than anything else. Hustings back out here. He's gonna be... Oh, he's still gonna be a lap ahead of Roots. So I think Roots has been in already. No, he hasn't. Well, that's relatively surprising.
No, Roots has been in.
He has been in, but only once. But he's quite far down. He's now 1 minute and 23 seconds off of the leader. So that's not just 2 or 3 laps. That'll be something like 6 laps in the end down on John Barnes. 5 laps, according to the ticker.
I think he had been lapped at least once, possibly twice before he came in, and that might be part of that. And Barnes is actually, he's going to lap all the way up to Matty Sufi pretty soon. There is only himself and Matthew still on this lead lap.
This is quite impressive. Paul Gosling's really beginning to feel the tire wear, I think, as he's falling off the pace that he was on before. He's almost into 16-second lap time territory, which is really where you'd have to consider hitting in. But they might want to make it to lap 100. That could be it as well, and then try to chew it over into 3 bits, basically.
Yeah, I think that would make the most sense if we keep staying green like this. Hendrick now working with the car of John Tusting. And again, he doesn't want to fight it. This is where it's good to be aware of where everybody is in terms of laps around you, because he'll see the red on his F3 screen, knows that Tusting's probably pitted or has just had some bad luck. So he doesn't need to fight him when he's that much quicker. Just kind of let him go and focus on your own race.
Oh, Tusting goes straight into the wall.
That's a blown engine. That's him done for the night.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. That looked a little bit strange, the way the car just sort of careered into the wall. And it didn't really look like much input was being given into it here. And then let's see if I can find anything on it. No, this is from just when we've hit the wall. And the last bit, well, then we're going to watch a minute of John Tusting driving around before the incident. That's not going to happen, I'm afraid. I don't know what's the matter with the event viewer, but I seem to get very few indications of incidents here, which is, of course, because we don't have off tracks and because, for instance, John Tusting in that situation didn't come to a stop, so that makes good sense. It's a little bit of a shame when trying to watch back what exactly happened.
Paul Gosling's in now, so he's the next to blink, and the first of our front runners, so he was running third. This is probably the right call for him because he was about to go a lap down anyway, so he might as well try and do something that will turn the tables on Barnes. Barnes hasn't made motion to come in himself. No other drivers have really done the same.
You mentioned that John Barnes seems to be doing something with his tires that the rest of the field isn't really able to replicate. Oh, and he has a bit of a slide there. There's a moment where Ian Roots has a synchronous slide basically in behind there. He manages to catch it though. Good skill from John Barnes. But he's still lapping at least a few tenths quicker than most of the field, at least all of the drivers that hasn't been into the pits yet. So we'll see. Gosling's out again. And he's now unlapping himself. That's from Kim Behabe. No, that's Hendrik de Graeve, of course.
Yeah, so he's running about half a second faster than our leader right now. That's probably not as much as he was hoping for. You mentioned it just briefly ago that, the 777, I'm pretty certain he was kind of just running it a little easy at the start, let the car come to its own, and saving his tires like that has allowed him to stretch it that much longer, be faster longer, which is really the goal here. So it's why you're seeing him have such an effect over the rest of the field. As we now look at Gosling once again, he's got himself back up to 7th.
see
And
that.
look, now he can just
Oh.
pick and choose his lines now, as I think there was a little brush with the wall from Adam Wright.
Yeah, I was just about to say the very same thing. He seems in complete control of his own fate with his fresh tires. It makes a pretty massive difference, actually, and maybe a little bit bigger, at least, than I expected, as we're on lap 111 of the 300 we've got to go. We're nearing in on the halfway marker on this race. So far, we've yet to see our first caution. We have seen a bit of attrition. Certainly not been as bad as as one might have expected. Expectations were on the attritional side, but it's been a little bit more of what you hoped here, I think.
Exactly. And speaking of expectations, I expected Gosling to be quicker. Well, he's answered that. I think the tires needed to get up to temperature a little bit, because now he is cruising. Got down to 14.4 at one point. And I see a couple others that have witnessed his speed and decided, well, now's probably the time. Looks like Musselwhite, Henrik, and looks like Behate.
Yeah, indeed, both Flemish cars, Musselwhite in as well. I see in chat John Tusting has VR headset that froze up, so that explains the weird nature of that incident. Did look like a technical mishap. Sorry to hear that. That is a rather annoying way to have your race ended. So Gosling now back up to third place here, ahead of Michael Tyler, and then Hendrik, who's out in, will be fifth place after his pit stop.
It is indeed. And if the other laps are anything to go by, I'm guessing it's maybe going to take him 2 or 3, and then finally he'll start to dip the times down into the mid-14s, most likely. Barnes is still circulating right now at 15.6s consistently the last 3 laps. We watch Henrik as he comes through, and let's see what he sets this time by. No, he's on it from the word go. He hit 14.5 and 14.7.
So the driver here is really, he's taking advantage of every inch of track as well. He's going to find himself on the tail of Maddie Sufi. Of course, a lap down on Sufi. Sufi's yet to pit as well. It's only John Barnes, Maddie Sufi, and Michael Tyler, as well as James Hall, who is yet to make their first pit stops. You can really see that speed difference. The gap obviously is going to be coming down quite a lot. I'm thinking here, is John Barnes going to be trying to take a pit stop less than everybody else here?
I think he's got the ability to. Well, I say that. I'm not actually sure how many laps that they can go on fuel. But if he can, then you might as well. He had almost a lap over all of his rivals. He's, staying out yet again. Let's see this time by. What's his time going to be? Still 15.5. So still keeping consistent, not dropping off too poorly. 87's got himself up to 4th already, but still 3 laps down from the leader.
Yeah. There's Tyler being passed by Kim Behate. Tyler's doing 16.4 on his final lap there, so he's trying to one-stop it as well, I would suspect. But by losing 2 seconds a lap, have an overall pit time of between 36 and 40 seconds. Losing 2 seconds a lap, that's not really going to be a viable strategy. Better to make that extra stop. But of course, for John Barnes, who's not really dropping that much off the pace that here we have in the leader, the lone leader, or as lone as you can get on half a mile of tarmac with 15 other drivers on it.
Only person on the lead lap right now. Gosling's still reeling in Sufi, and he was, I'm pretty certain, at least 2 laps down from him. So that means he has indeed made it up. And this starts to make me wonder if the 1-stop or 2-stop is the better strategy. Because if he's able to get that back before the pit stop is over and get himself far enough ahead, then he could actually be overall quicker.
That's a very good point here, because he's actually about... expect that to be 4 or 5... well, between 5 and 10 seconds up on Barnes on the Delta. Take that pit stop into consideration. And of course, we'd get John Barnes out flying again. Oh, here comes the Flemish machine. That's that was Behate, who's really going for it as well. I think Barnes was between those. Oh, and that's a wreck, and that is the leader. And that's contact with the 8 car of Simon Benus, I'm afraid.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's few places to hide here at a short track, and so trouble can find you. He even gave him a lot of space there, but that bounce and then back down to the bottom of the track, there's not much he could do in that situation, and gets another hit for the pit wall just for good measure.
Yeah, that's rather unlucky. And then another hit on the high side there as well for John Barnes. And this has not brought out the caution. Barnes is pitting in as we'd expect here. That's really gonna throw a spanner in the works of John Barnes. It was looking very good for him. Smooth sailing there at the head of the field now. Matty Sufi's looking to take over the lead. We just gotta keep an eye on the repair time there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to take repairs or what. Yes, he is. Ooh, bad news for the 777. So it's going to be a long stop. Now, he had built up such a gap, and we know he can make it quite a long time on those tires. He might still be okay, although it's up to 30 seconds now. That's 2 laps right there. He might have gotten too much damage, and Sufi is in as well.
Sufi's in for his first pit stop. He's gonna fall a fair bit away behind there on Paul Gosling, who did that early pit stop. Of course, some other drivers are gonna come out flying now. His last lap, by the way, was a 15.5. So it's also worth noting that that initial pace advantage that the fresh tires give you really won't last forever here.
No, it won't. And it seems like lasts about 30 to 40 laps where you start to get back to that leveling out point that we've seen of 15.5 seconds per lap. But Gosling's got what he's been looking for, which is the track position, because everybody behind him has pitted at least once. He is now our actual and technical leader.
Our de facto leader, indeed, 5.5 seconds clear of De Grave, who indeed is about 5.5 seconds clear of his teammate Kim Behate. Got info on what happened there to John Barnes. And that is 10 minutes of required repairs for John Barnes. So that is going to be
40 laps.
Yeah, that is going to be pretty much race over regardless. And also noting that it's the second consecutive week that he's taken out by a back marker.
We got a caution.
Oh, we got our first caution. It's Musselwhite. Let's see if we can have a look at what happened. Stuart Musselwhite, there we are. He comes to a stop, and that's going to bring out the caution flag.
And for once, for the second time, it involves the 8 car.
Or is that all by himself? Gets a slide on, manages not to hit anything, I think. And brings
there was just the lightest bit of contact on the way in. I think
that's true. Yeah. That's true. That's the 8 car, indeed, of Simon Benus.
I think Adam Wright got a small piece of it as well, but it was a tiny touch, so I think he'll be okay. Simon's not been making friends, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, that's true.
One more time.
Yeah, a tap left and a tap right for Adam Wright, indeed. See it there, and There again, it's not much, but it could be enough to cause a little bit of trouble. And with our first caution period, I take it here the caution periods will be a little bit longer than 3 laps. A lot of the drivers are going to take advantage of this and fling off into the pits here. Paul Gosling, the first one to do so. And for him, this is perfect timing indeed, because it's going to negate whatever disadvantage he was at by being first to pit. He gets the chance to go in and lose a lot less time than everyone else.
Yeah, that caution came at probably the perfect time for him. Should be able to get back out on the lead lap. And yeah, he's just back out now. So Gosling will cycle back around. There's a couple cars that are going to get back onto the lead lap because of that. This worked out decently well for Barnes, too, because he wasn't going to get the lucky dog here. There was too many cars in front of him a lap down. But this will slow down how many laps that he's going to lose because of that yellow. So he wants this to go as long as possible so he can get back out there and join with fewer laps to try and make up.
And there's an interesting thing about the scoring system here in this series as well, that it even if you DNF, it's your final position as DNF is going to count for whatever points you're going to pick up. So there's all the incentive to keep on driving and to keep on pushing, because there could be extra points awaiting. De Grave is now in the lead ahead of Gosling. So he must have gotten some kind of wave through there on the caution there, Joe.
You're right. That is interesting. Trying to see what exactly happened here.
Matty Sufi's had a 2.4 second pit stop. Gotta wonder what that's all about then.
I'm checking that real quick as well. Well, did he... Let's see. When was his last stop? Let me check his laps here. And
his last pit stop, let me see. That should be on lap 145. We're on lap 146 now, well, so he basically just had that pit stop.
Before that one, though. Yeah, the one before that one, that's what I'm wondering is... Was he just maybe stopping in for a splash and dash, I wonder? Because that'd be my best guess.
That could probably be it. We're getting ready for a restart here. It's Hendrik de Grave and Paul Gosling there on the teamwork. Gosling gets sent on by Kim Behate, and it's now a Flemish 1-2. Sufi up into 4th. Well, he is, of course, 4th, but he's behind a few cars that got the wave by. He is, though, on the lead lap.
So I can report on what happened with Hendrik. That 87 also had not pitted all that long ago. So he decided, let's just stay out and get the track position. Now he's going to be on slightly older rubber than what Paul Gosling is. So I think Gosling is going to have a grip advantage as we watch from on board the 87, who's already looking around the outside, and Kim Behate is just marching away from both of them.
Absolutely. Oh, there's contact. Oh, and how they managed to keep that going, I have absolutely no clue. But
Great
that was
job to keep a cool head. Oh, and what happened to Behate?
Behate?
He almost spun out of turn 2, hit the inside wall. So in the process of one lap, Paul Gosling went from 3rd to 1st.
What a hellish lap it's been for Flemish here. We'll see what happened in the situation between Gosling and Hendrik de Grave. As they just got... It was a bit of a netcoat between the two that caused the incident. And without the netcoat, there would have been no problem. They would have been well clear of one another.
Ooh, we're going to have a wreck, though. The 87 on the front stretch. And it's unfortunately another car bouncing in front of them. Wow, that could have been a lot worse. That was Adam Wright.
And another caution here. Another caution here. There it is. Oh, so it's de Grave, I think. It's actually lost it. Let's see if we can get a better view of that. Yeah, de Grave has lost it before this. He goes and collects Adam Wright in the 27.
So what happened
And then
here?
he gets a bit of a touch, a bit of a returning the favor there, I think, of course, inadvertently.
Yeah.
The Grave seemed to...
Ian Roots made initial contact on the back of De Grave, so it wasn't totally his fault. He got sent loose, and he was trying to catch the car, and there was just such a big pack behind him. I don't think he had many chances to try and keep from causing trouble. Yeah, there it is.
That's a good call, because I don't think we would have seen that otherwise, but you can see that bit of a touch there from Roots. And you gotta say, in this situation, De Grave is pretty lucky to get away with it as cheaply as he does. Does get quite the knock on the front there, on the side as well. But certainly pretty much worse off here is Adam Wright.
Who was that making that avoidance maneuver? Because that was pretty spectacular. I'm trying to figure out. I think that might have been Sufi, actually. Yeah, Sufi weaved in and out of the cars, and that has put him into second place. Oh, beautiful.
That's incredible. Very, very good reactions from Matty Sufi. De Grave now leaving the pits. He's a minute and a half down, so 5-6 laps is going to be on our leading Paul Gosling.
I think we're still at 3 cars on the lead lap. Gosling, Sufi, Behait, Musselwhite. Is he getting a wave round? No, it's De Greve. Yeah, the 87, I think, is getting the wave round potentially, or is he just catching the pack? I think he's just catching the pack. Sorry.
So it seems... Get the lucky dog here. You'd expect it to be Musselwhite.
I thought so too, but yeah. He's now parked up behind Hendrick and isn't making motions that he's going to pass him.
On the 68 gets a wave around here. That's James Hall.
Yeah, I think they're getting them in order. Do we have lights out? Actually, I think we might. Yeah, lights are out on the pace car, so we're getting ready to roll.
Getting back to green here at Bristol, and we're about halfway through the race, coming on to lap 159. It's Paul Gosling leading from Matty Sufi and Kim Behait. Said before, Joe, the only 3 cars on the lead lap currently, but keep a woke eye on this one, because anything could still happen there. And Gosling goes early. We haven't seen anyone do this so far, but it seems to be the right call. It's caught everybody else out, basically. And all of these top 3 drivers are on tires that are basically the same age. About 10, 12 laps now.
Yeah, so they'll be pretty even. Henrik behind them just pitted, so I think he's on fresh rubber himself. And he absolutely sliced through the rest of the field to try and catch up to these guys, because he's only 1 lap down. So is Musselwhite. Both of them have incentive to try to catch the leaders and pass them, and possibly hope we get another caution. So and we see Musselwhite here on screen.
Does look like Musselwhite then did get some sort of waiver. Oh, Musselwhite collects the wall there just slightly again. Got to be careful with that.
And I keep mentioning the fresh tires. I do need to specify they only have 4 sets total. And I see most of the drivers have taken 2 stops. So that means 1 set left. And frankly, you kind of want to hold on to that until late in the race in case we do get a caution at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is probably going to be a longer haul, or a long-ish haul. Oh, another touch there on the outside wall from De Grave.
He's trying to get underneath his teammate there. Yeah, Kim Behait just going to let him through. Doesn't want to fight that too much since he's a lap down. Top 3 that we were talking about have split up. Kim doesn't seem to be able to hang with Matty and Paul all that well.
No, that's a good point. But it could be a bit of the damage that the both of the Flemish cars have been involved in a little bit of argy-bargy here and there, and it's been the case for most of the field. But I think both Paul Gosling and Matty Sufi have managed to stay clear of any kind of debacle so far, and as such, they would have cars that are just that little bit more efficient aerodynamically in terms of still creating that downforce, and I think, and I'm not quite sure, but I think that could be what's making the difference. And at the same time, though, Hendrik de Grave at the moment, with those fresher tires, is absolutely flying. You can see Gosling really opting for a higher line here at the moment. Maybe also realizing that he's going to go quite long on these tires, trying to save them as best as he can.
Yeah, we watched him do that for much of the first stint, too. So, yeah, the 5 just kind of thinking long term here in case we get another long run. For those curious about Barnes, the final tally is 24 laps down, sadly. And yeah, I think we can officially write him out of the win, but we'll see how many positions he's able to get as the race progresses.
Gotta say, I'm a big fan of the static cams. I think it does have... Oh, yeah.
It gives you that sense of speed around here.
Yeah, and iRacing that really does a great job of capturing the energy of the passing cars that translates to the camera, and the shake that really is immersive. Watching Paul Gosling as Matty Sufi is steadily closing in on the 5 car ahead of him. Sufi now really seems to have picked up the pace. And that is, I was just about to say Behate on the tail, but it's not Behate. Behate is a few seconds down. You can just see him there in the background. But it's actually de Grave who's trying to unlap himself. So it seems to me that de Grave, who I think did, of course, take a few repairs as well, might have come out of that okay. Seems to be that he's...
Certainly looks like it.
Yeah, absolutely. So still has the pace here. Sufi now on the inside. A little bit of a touch there. And another touch the backside of Paul Gosling's car. He's just going to let through the Grave there. With a little bit of a bent hood on Paul Gosling's car. If you see that left-hand side of the hood, he'd have a little bit of a bump. But I think it's also going to be one of these tracks where no matter what kind of a finish we see here, I don't think we'll see any car finishing without at least a few bumps and bruises, if not worse. I was about to say injuries, but worse damage there to be picked up along the way.
Exactly. And the 5 is the latest victim of that one, but he is dropping back. I think Matty really does have the legs over him right now. The question is how much of that is due to the damage that Gosling may have gotten, and how much of it is Sufi actually being legitimately faster, because he was catching him before he had that incident.
Good point here. Sufi's last lap still just around the 15 dead mark. 3/10 quicker than both Gosling and Behate. 2/10, 3/10 thereabouts. So Behate still falling back there. De Grave, though, really on the pace still. He's trying to find his way through on Sufi. There's the 8 of Simon Benus, and Gosling sneaking through there. Quite committed.
This has been a bit of a nuisance here today, if I can get the joke out. And he's already 78 laps down. There's not going to be much left for him to hope for here pretty soon, because we're going to be hitting the 100 laps to go mark in just about 15.
Yeah, but he's got Adam Wright in the pit that he's passing in about 3 laps. Then the next one would be John Tusting. And Tusting, I would suspect, is also in the pits.
How far back was Behate before? Because Gosling now sees Kim getting closer, I think. It's down to 2.7 seconds.
Yeah, Gosling is struggling at the moment. So as strong as he was earlier here, Kim Behate is indeed seemingly closing the gap. But on his last lap, though, Behate was Well, he is closing the gap now. Oh, he needs to squeeze past Benus there.
He's going to get through. Let's see this time by Behate with a 15.7's held up a little bit by lap traffic. 15.4 for Gosling. So he needs some clear track to really just start putting down the laps and see if he could aim for that P2.
That is a very good point. You spoke about this traffic management as well as a big part of racing here at Bristol, and it really turns out to be. Here comes De Grave on the leader. He's about to unlap himself. I spoke a bit too soon there, I'm afraid.
Sufi might actually want to hold this one back because Hendrick has been a quick one today. And yeah, he's not giving him the easiest of times. 87's got to try and re-rack it and go for it again. So yes, he's a lap down car, and no, it doesn't seem like he's a threat, but this is far different from what you might see on typical road races where a lap down car trying to unlap itself isn't a problem to you. 14 second lap times means he's not that far behind, frankly.
That's a good point. We got Matty Sufi's overtake on Paul Gosling again. A little bit dicey as Gosling hit the wall there on the outside. Wasn't much, but it doesn't take a lot to to damage something, especially the suspension on these machines can be a little bit fragile. So Barnes now 9 seconds down on Ian Roots. There'll be positions to fight for. Steadily gaining. Over half a second quicker than Roots at the moment. Got a bit of spread on the race as well, because Manny Sufi's now pulling out that advantage on Paul Gosling's up to 4.5 seconds or so. Then it's pretty steady. Around 3.5 seconds from Gosling to Behate. And De Grave, who's still on the tail of Sufi, falling off of the pace ever so slightly. Or he might just be saving his tires enough that he can have a go later on. But Sufi's doing well here, Joe. Sufi's doing well here, Joe, because his tires are 10 laps older than De Grave's. Now, of course, the 10 laps here isn't all that long, but it will be enough to make a difference in the long run.
Well, that's just it, the long run. And they have been going green for a bit, so the tires could potentially kind of even out. And I thought I saw a change for position. I think that was just a blip in somebody's connection. Excuse me. So, yeah, Hendrick is probably starting to maybe feel it a little bit, and Sufi having to go to the inside as he goes underneath Benus and right back up underneath that lead car. The 87 has got an opportunity. He's going to send it in deep and see if he can make it stick on the high side, but nothing doing.
And he does that slingshot maneuver to get on the low side in the following corner. Oh, that's close to one another. They just about managed to get around there. And Sufi is having none of this. Wants De Grave to be a lap back. He wants him to stay there, stay put. Obviously, De Grave wants it otherwise, but that was a close call indeed. There is De Grave just taps the wall yet again. We've seen so many drivers do. On the tail of these two at the moment, and absolutely flying. The quickest car on track for the time being is John Barnes. For the second consecutive week here, Joe. I know it was Marcus with me last week, but we saw something terribly similar to what fate has befallen John Barnes tonight, which is a big shame indeed.
Well, now he's put himself in between the 87 and the 64, so this becomes a bit of an annoyance for Hendrick. But I think, thankfully, he's going to leave them by because Barnes, as you said earlier, he is flying. And he really is none of either of their concerns. So this is a case where maybe Matty wants to keep him back just so that he acts as a buffer, but he doesn't need to risk the car in this situation. And indeed, I think looks like he's just going to let the 777 go.
Yeah. De Graave had another touch at the wall there as well. Wisely, I think he lets John Barnes go. De Graave now 7.5 seconds down on Behate. And I think the gap is coming down. As I say that, actually beginning to go the other way, and Behate seems to be closing the gap, however, on Gosling. Yeah, he was actually over 0.3 of a second quicker than Gosling on that last lap. So the gap of 3 seconds could come down rather quickly as well. Soof is still hanging on very well. But well within the final 100 laps of the race here tonight.
Good news for Matty is that Hendrick has kind of fallen away now. So I wonder if Hendrick used up the best of his stuff just trying to get that lap back. The good news is if we get a caution, he will be the lucky dog unless he gets involved in the incident, as he gets a little close there to Ian Roots. And Ian currently running down in the 9th position out of our 11 cars still running.
Yeah, we got Tusting and Benoofs. Adam Wright, who is in the pits still. Greatorex called it a day early. He had an abysmal start as well to his race. Be hard pressed to find any worse luck than what befell Boston Greatorex. Be here, Kim Behate. So consistently closing the gap and now actually beginning to speed up. So his strategy of maybe going a little bit easier. Oh, and somebody's hit the wall.
Didn't quite see who.
I think, is that John Tusting?
It
Just entered the
might
pit
have
lane, but that all on his own, didn't he? Just entered the pits, basically.
Yeah, I think he's another one that's far enough down. Well, no, I was going to say if maybe he's parking it. No, he's just taking some fuel and getting back out. I can't figure out who in the world's made a little bit of a slap there, so not too uncommon at this track, and we've seen plenty of them able to keep going. So Sophie now up to 6 seconds ahead of Gosling, is very much got this under control. There you see the 5 as the sun's actually starting to set just a little bit now. It is getting a little late in the day. It's 6 p.m. virtual standard time.
Behate within 2 seconds now. He's quickly closing that gap, really speeding up his last lap with a 15.6. So on par with Sophie up ahead, basically, and 0.2 of a second, basically, quicker than Paul Gosling. And that's not bad at all.
Gosling's in the consistent 15.7, 15.8 range, too. So this seems to be about what he's got. I'm not sure what's going wrong with the 5 unless it is the damage that we saw him get hitting the wall many laps ago, because he's run it as hard as he can, but he's continually losing time. Behate now down to 1.1 seconds.
It's going quite a lot quicker than I think Paul Gosling would like it to. See his car just beginning to be a little bit square. Well, and I'm wondering if it's the damage from before.
Credit to him for still running in second. He's soldiering on, and even if he does lose it, third place is not going to be too shabby. Although, with how he was leading for a little while, I'm sure he'd love to have seen victory lane today. Granted, it's not over. He could still get back into this.
Well, certainly not. And De Graave now also losing time on Behate. So Kipahade, who's taken the patient strategy here, is gonna go the long way around on Benus. He's gonna get out of the way. I think the other drivers would have liked him to make a decision of just going high and letting off a little bit earlier, because it's, of course, this track, a very hard place to get out of the way as well. That has to be said. Now Kipahade, however, directly on the tail of the 5 car. He's gonna make short work of Paul Gosling. Indeed, there he goes up the inside, immediately past.
That's P2 for the 86. So question is he quicker than Sufi though? 8 seconds between them. Last time by a 15.9 for Kim. Matt with a 15.6. That's going to be a no. And Musselwhite is in pit lane. Thought I saw somebody else in with him. Oh, it's Gosling.
Gosling, Paul Gosling in, so he might have overcooked his tires earlier in that stint. Gonna let through Hendrik de Grave. De Grave was in on lap 155. And Warren Rubber as well by now. They do still have one final set. That was actually Paul Gosling's final set of tires that he put on here and there. So, if there's a late caution, Gosling is not going to be able to respond to it, at least not with a fresh set of tires.
No, and he's likely to be trapped too, because he did go 2 laps down. I see Tyler, I think, coming in the 96, so that's from 6th place. Yeah, Gosling's sending a Hail Mary at this point. He saw himself losing time, knew he had that extra set, so let's put him on. Let's see what happens from here. At worst, he's going to end up 4th if he stays behind De Greve. But I'm guessing that he's going to be able to run down Hendrick before this race is out, if the 87 doesn't pit again. So most likely a 3rd place, which is where he was before. So this is kind of I say a Hail Mary, but it was a tactical Hail Mary. He knew that, I'm not going to lose anything, so, I might as well go for the gamble.
Yeah, there's Musselwhite, who's on fresh tires as well, trying to unlap himself from the Grave. And then the reborn number 5 car there. They make contact again, another net code. And you can see maybe one of the luckier net dogs I've seen in my days, but that was less lucky. And Gosling's been picked up by Stuart Musselwhite. They've managed to collect one another. That's going to bring out the yellow flag indeed.
That's going to be the 5 out of the running now. And Hendrick will get his lap back.
Will indeed.
I think he got a little too eager. He knew he had to make up a ton of time on that fresh rubber. Just let himself get too close to that lapped car, and it bit both of them in the absolute worst way.
Oh, what a bit of rotten luck there. He's gonna... I take it he's gonna have to pit in as soon as the pit lane opens up. Doesn't look that bad on Paul Gosling's car, so you wonder if he's gonna be able to stay out there. Looks quite a lot worse for Stuart Musselwhite. Basically missing the entire front end of the car. Musselwhite was sitting in 5th place as well. He's now on the same lap as Michael Tyler. So Sufi comes in now. Hall Roots, John Tusting, and Kim Behate comes in as well. Sufi stays out though. Yeah, Sufi stays out, that's my bad. But the Grave Behate... Was that a bit of a... A bit of a fake there from Sufi. That might have been.
No, Sufi came in and actually got some repairs too.
That's true.
And it was a long stop, 26 seconds. So I think he got a bit of the sheet metal.
That's the Pit, that's the overall pit time. What is the pit lane time test? 2 seconds on Sufi. A little bit weird. Maybe just a glitch in the calculations there. But he is indeed ahead of Behate.
Oh, and Hendrick is in now. I believe he was supposed to stay out to get his lucky dog and then come in. At least I thought. Do they have lucky dogs turned off potentially? Maybe I'm anticipating it wrong.
I haven't seen a lucky dog here, so they might have turned it off for this one. We usually have it on for this series. So a little bit of a surprise there to me, but he's still
going to be one lap down. It's now down to Sufi and Behate.
Yeah.
I am not sure why the 87 came in when he did, because he was going to get the wave around.
Yeah, he could have taken the wave around and then come in following that. That is true. Of course, they're letting a lot of the cars ahead of Sufi pass on, so of course means the lights are off on the pace car. Whatever remnants of a field we have here going into the final 60 laps of racing here at Bristol. Sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. Take into consideration that it's about 4 laps a minute here as the pace truck's off. Or the pace car is the Mustang for this one, and Sufi's gone relatively early this time around. And that was a wise strategic or tactical move there, team-wise, by Simracersworld Esports, trying to get Ian Roots past on Behate there to act as a buffer.
The 87's coming in. Does he have a penalty? I think he's got a penalty. This is highly unusual. Well, now he's going to go multiple laps down, and I think Gosling might actually get a spot over him, depending on... Okay, now De Greve is going. 4-second stop.
Went quite quickly and then slowed down quite a lot there in the pit lane. Just gotta wonder if he went too quickly there, but Gosling is indeed passed on De Greve. Paul Gosling is 2 laps down. 2.5 laps. He's now 5 seconds up on Hendrick. At 4 pit stops now, and you'd expect him to have fresh tires. Pit stop, so he was in before. Now he's been in again. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It's all chaotic here at Bristol, with Sufi and Behate a second apart from one another. These two looks to be the two that'll be fighting it out for the win. But saying that, it could all still change in the blink of an eye. It's done so multiple times tonight. I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen again. Right now, Joe, it seems that Matty Sufi has the advantage, though, on Kim Behate here.
Does look like it. You know, hop on board, looking backwards, and only 2 left on the lead lap as well. And I mentioned earlier that the sun is kind of going down a little bit here. They obviously do, and have for many years, run a night race so they can go as late as they want. But for those of you who are cinema fans, you might remember some night race footage when they, in that movie, that was filmed here at Bristol, because at that time, that was the only night race on the schedule for NASCAR, and they specifically wanted that footage. So something I learned recently that I had no idea it was the only one for a long time.
This quarter-mile short track, of which ground was broken for in 1960. Track was opened in 1961. After the constructors, they visited the Charlotte Motor Speedway and thought, well, let's have one of these, but in Tennessee. So they went for it. It could have been called what was it? Pine somethings? I actually don't remember. I gotta read back up on it. That's quite Piney Flats. Indeed, I seem to remember because it was sort of a funny name, but managed to forget anyways. Piney Flats, which is about 8 kilometers or 5 miles roads from Bristol, where the track finally got placed. So also you have to say, Joe, a staple hold of NASCAR racing as well, and as a fan to come and experience the racing here, it, at least as far as I've understood it, is one of the best places to go.
Yes, it's one of the ones I haven't done in NASCAR, but I'd love to go get to see a race here. For a long time, it was actually one of the toughest to try and get tickets to of the entire schedule, which is saying something because you have to consider the Daytona 500 and other marquee events that this was the one, just because it's so incredible to sit inside this stadium. It's the 10th largest sporting venue in the entire world, actually.
That says quite a lot because there's some big venues around, but of course the size does maybe cheat a little bit. I don't know how many fans there are seating for. I guess it's not really seating all the way around. They probably got a few stands as well here, but I suspect it's quite a number of people who could fit in a venue like this. And,
oh yes,
and it goes a lot. 100 and sorry.
153,000. The largest one. I actually have been to the largest one. It's Indy Motor Speedway.
That makes perfect sense as well. Indy, as compared to this, it's a huge track as well.
Oh yes.
And as Ian Roots has a bit of a tap with the wall there. Kim Behade was catching up to Maddie Sufi there for a moment, but that might have been because of the traffic ahead. Is now back up to 1.3 seconds. Coming into the final 30 laps of the race now. It's really towards the closing stages here. If Behade wants to make a move on Maddie Sufi, he has to do so soon, doesn't he?
We might have a bit of a battle forming up because I see the 96 is running quicker laps than the 18. That's for 5th place. Michael Tyler, I believe he had to have put on fresher tires here more recently than Musselwhite. No, it's about the same age, it looks like.
Yeah, but Musselwhite's got some heavy damage to his machine. Look at that car. It's in a sorry state, I'm afraid. Bit of a closer view.
Yeah, that's not exactly how it's supposed to look, but definitely a good point. So, yeah, Tyler's running 15 flats. Actually, some of them in the 14.9s and 14.8s, and Musselwhite can only run 15.1. So that's kind of chipping down, and it's going to be probably just about the right amount of laps for him to get to his rear by the time they reach that checkered flag.
Gonna keep an eye on that battle for 5th place ahead as well. It's looking very good for Maddie Sufi. And you're the championship leader coming into this ride, so he could really solidify his position here. As Behade is now behind John Barnes, and Behade is really losing time here. He lost...
Been consistently about 2 or 3 tenths slower, it looks like.
Yeah, exactly, and he's been dropping off the pace quite consistently, but he's... do you think he's trying to save his tires for a final sprint, or do you just think this is like a you think he's recognizing that it's the state that it is, and well, we're just gonna secure the 2nd place here?
Yeah, I think at this point, if you do have something to reserve, you got to start using it now. So I don't think this is Kim holding back. This is probably about the most that 86 has underneath it. In front, that it's a lap car that you see. That's Ian Root, so that's not for position. And they're running, I believe, pretty similar times, frankly. So yeah, I think this is the 86, like you said, kind of settling for what's possible here today and just try to bring the car home, because this track is already snatched up a few drivers who just got a little sleepy and drifted up into the outside wall, and that put serious damage on the car. So you don't need to push it 110%. Just got to run it about 99 and bring home the vehicle.
Look at this here, however, Joe. There is something cooking up as well. For third place is Paul Gosling, and Hendrik de Grave is just under a second from one another. They did basically identical lap times around the last lap of 15.5 for both of them. So they're still very much close to one another, and close enough that this could indeed take off all of a sudden. De Grave would love to get on the podium here.
I'm sure, especially considering the kind of race that he's had. It's been so up and down. So let's get out the boxing gloves. I think we're here for round 2 between this pair, except this time it's not going to be for the win.
No, that's true. That is true indeed. This is Michael... No, this is James Hall, I'm sorry, and this 68 who's sitting there behind De Grave. De Grave, however, not really able to close the gap. They're just matching their pace one another. Himself and Paul Gosling. And it ebbs and flows one way and a bit the other. Right now, Gosling seems to me to be in control. Sufi about 3.5 seconds up, and Stuart Musselwhite now actually being able to pull out a bit of a gap on Michael Tyler. Tyler is doing 15.7s. So, oh, and somebody's picked up the wall there.
Is that De Greve?
That was Musselwhite. Stuart Musselwhite. And I think his engine is gone.
That is a shame. So close to the finish. I think he should be far enough. Yeah, this shouldn't bring out a caution most likely because he's all the way at the bottom there, and he's actually going to make it into the pit lane. Tyler loves that because now he doesn't have to fight for that 5th place. He's through.
Yeah, that's a bit of a gift for Michael Tyler here at this late stage now. 16 laps to go. That's about 4 minutes of racing. A little bit more. Oh, Tyler.
Told you got to get to the finish here. Oh,
he's pitting in now. Maybe recognizing that he can. A question of splash and dash here for Michael Tyler in the 96. Can only be a question of making sure you have sufficient fuel to make it to the end of the race.
He's taking his last set. And Hall is 4 laps behind him. So yeah, he's got a free pit stop here. So he's just going to... And this isn't, I don't think, anything that he feels like is going to get him something. I think this is, the tires don't feel great. Let's put some new ones on. It'll feel, a little more stable all the way to the end, sort of thing.
Yeah. Here, Gosling taking good advantage of the fact that Matty Sufi is putting in an extra lap, or at least trying to put in an extra lap on Hendrik de Grave. That's not going to help De Grave the slightest. Sufi's gonna back out of it, I think, for now at least. Probably just realizing, we've got 12 laps to go. When I look at Matty Sufi's car, it looks to be the only car that I can see that, and as I say that, it does indeed have a bit of a dent there on the rear end, but at least a lot less impact suffered than what's the average for our field tonight here. It's been a hard race indeed.
Well, that's just part of short track racing. A lot of times you aren't going to have a pristine car, most likely. Everybody's going to be very close to one another. The walls are always close, and since it's such a short lap, you have to do that much more to wring the neck of the car. So everybody tends to have some bondo to do on these machines once they get home. And with only 7.5 laps to go here, this is going to be a good day for that 64.
It is indeed looking mighty fine for Matty Sufi. Simracersworld Esports, the Bravo team, looking to pick up a first win of the season.
Ooh, Gosling's been caught a little bit once again by the 87.
Well, that's interesting here at the very final stages of the race. It was 2/10 on the last lap. So if De Grave is able to keep up that sort of pace advantage, he might just make it. But it's going to be very marginal, I think, Joe. 0.8 of a second at this late stage.
Yeah, there's Gosling on the screen. It's down to 0.6, so yeah, he's chopped off more of it. 0.7 versus a 0.5 across the line. We were talking about some of the drivers kind of managing things from here. I kind of wonder if maybe that's what Paul is doing too. I think we're 2 to go at the line for Sufi. There it is.
2 to go indeed. And still around a second there. De Grave forced to let Michael Tyler and his fresh tires run on through. Going at a quick pace. Sufi's on the final lap now. And there it is, the final corner for Matty Sufi, who's going to crown a fine night of racing for his sake here at Bristol by taking the checkered flag ahead of Kim Behade by 4.5 seconds. Paul Gosling's getting third on the day. And he stayed ahead of Hendrik De Grave. There is the checkered flag for those two. Michael Tyler gets fifth ahead of James Hall and Ian Roots. See if we can get the results on screen. There it is. Well, that's the qualifying results. My my bad. My mistake. There it is. A little bit more relevant race results indeed.
Only 2 of them left on the lead lap. That tells you how tough this track is. Everybody likes to joke about it's just left turns, but that tells you all you need to know right there, that 2 on the lead lap, and then I believe only 5 of them within 10 laps of the leader. This is almost like an old school NASCAR race in the end.
Absolutely. It's been quite the watch, to say the very least. Interesting first experience for this field as well, with the short track racing, as we're waiting a few of the drivers to pop in for interviews. Incident Gosling, Musselwhite. Oh, what a perfect camera shot though from the scenic cam. That was quite random, but quite good nonetheless. A bad moment, though. Nothing good in that. Adam Wright had his fair share of bad luck as well on the day.
I have to say, though, I'm impressed with what we saw, because we had, 3 cautions? 3 or 4, something like that, out of 300 laps. That is actually very, very good.
Yeah, 3 cautions only on 300 laps here at Bristol. That's certainly not bad at all. There was Austin Greatorex who left his pits for it all to become worse, basically. He had a horrific race as well, to say the least. And I think, that said, could be seeing the first drivers who are in for a few interviews, and that is indeed the case. So without any further ado, let's bring in our race winner for tonight, Matty Sufi, for an interview. Matthew, welcome to the booth. Thanks for joining us here, and congratulations on a brilliant win here at Bristol. It indeed looked to be a very tough race, even here from the commentary booth. How was it? How was it out there on track tonight?
Yeah, hi guys. Yeah, well, like I said last week, this was going to be survival of the fittest, and it turned out to be like this. So pretty happy with the win here. I don't know what happened to John Barnes there. He had very impressive pace even on all tires. I mean, he was lapping us all, and suddenly he was laps down. I don't know what happened to him. We'll need to check that, but. Anyway, in the end, it was a bit. It was managing yourself through traffic and making sure you stayed out of trouble. Pitting at the right time, taking tires at the right time, topping fuel off at the right time, and yeah. Then in the end, I had still an interesting battle. I think it was me and Kim still on the lead lap, and then it was a bit. They played some tactics there, Flemish with Hendrik trying to hold me up there to back me up into Kim, but. Fortunately for me, I kept my cool and very happy to take my first win here in this series.
And indeed your first win, but you've been really consistent so far this season, already leading the championship. Now you have a win to your name as well, and it's beginning to look really, really good for you. What are your perspectives on the remaining parts of the season? Next week we're going to watch Watkins Glen, of course, our first road track as well in the series.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a consistency championship. I mean, you don't have to finish or you don't have to win all the races to be the champion at the end. I mean, consistently finishing like top 5 will get you the championship in the end if you don't get any penalties or stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm happy with the win, but thinking big picture, I mean, championship very good deal today. Like you say, leading and taking an extra lead today. Next week, Watkins Glen, I'm looking forward to it. We had a test race last season there, didn't count for the championship, and I ran pretty well there. I won, so I'm looking forward to. Obviously, with these cars, it will be a bit different than last year's Cup cars, but I'm really looking forward to the road course. Let's see. Let's hope we can get a clean race there and have another strong finish there.
Well, indeed, thanks for taking the time to come chat through us. Matthew, it's been a pleasure, and again, congratulations on a strong win. Before we let you go off and celebrate, is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to?
Well, I could say the obvious classics again, and I will say them. Obviously, you guys for the commentary, my teammates, and I'm gonna give a shout out to my wife tonight because she endures this racing with me I race on a couple of evenings a week, and yeah, she endures it with me and she lets me do this, so kudos to her. So loving her to the moon and back, and yeah, I'm glad she allows me to perform my hobbies, and I love her for that. Thanks, guys.
That's sweet, man. Thanks, Matty, and I'll hope to get a chance to speak to you as well again soon.
Thank you, man.
So that was Matty Sufi, our race winner for tonight. We're gonna leave our second place finisher, which of course is Kim Behate, in the capable hands of Joe Peak.
Kim, a second place, only other car on the lead lap, but it seemed like it was a tough one out there because with how many cars went laps down, how many drivers wound up getting damaged and involved in incidents, does it feel like a win, at least finishing on the lead lap and on the podium?
Hi guys. Yeah, it was a really tough one. It's Bristol. You're never gonna know what's gonna happen. So it was trying to manage our tires, see how far we can go, and watch the drop off. But it's managing traffic. It's keeping 100% focus. It's Bristol. It's not easy.
Matt was saying that he felt like the Flemish team was kind of using some team tactics to work together and give themselves an advantage at certain spots in the race. Were you and Hendrik in communication out there? Were you trying to work together?
Sure, I guess every team on the grid uses tactics to help each other out. But in this case, it wasn't much I can do because on that first restart, I made a big mistake. Getting too hot out of the corner, hit the wall, got some damage, and had to manage my engine temperatures for the rest of the race. Honestly, I thought my race was over, but I was able to manage it a little bit, but I couldn't keep up a good pace to catch Mathieu and maybe get into a battle with him, so it wasn't that important.
That makes sense then. Talk about some of those long green flag runs, though. Coming into this race, did you expect more cautions? Were you a little bit surprised at how long you guys were able to go?
Yeah, we actually thought there weren't going to be any green flag pit stops. But then at the start of the race, when we saw the turnout, I think about 15 drivers showed up this evening. We started doubting for maybe it's going to happen anyway. There are not going to be too many cautions. And then the first pit stops came, and it was a matter of watching the drop-off of the tires and deciding to pit at the right time to not lose too much time out on track. And that was the most important thing in the first half of the race, I think.
I'd say you managed it well. Is there anybody you'd like to thank that helped make this podium possible?
Well, the entire Flemish team. Hendrik has a teammate, and our sponsor Viraco for the support they are giving us through all of our series, and of course you guys for the amazing broadcast.
Well, thank you for the kind words. It was Kim Bahate who finished second today. I do believe Hesse has our third place finisher ready to come in as well. That would be Paul Gosling.
Yes, indeed. We have Paul Gosling on the line with us. Paul, thank you for joining us for the post-race interview. An eventful race today. A lot of stuff happening, waving back and forth, and really, as the pendulum swings, it did swing sort of your way in the end, and you ended up on the podium. Are you content with the third place finish today?
Evening, guys. Yeah, I think I'll take that, to be honest. It was a pretty crazy race. Yeah, I was sort of running up there with Matteo for a bit, but I couldn't quite match his pace. And then, yeah, towards the end there, I took a green flag stop and then got caught in a bit of a mess. So, yeah, all in all, I think I may have got lucky. I think Henrik may have got a penalty or something from his last pit stop, and so that potentially got me that third place back. But yeah, now you take it.
And you were involved in an incident yourself, coming out from a pit stop on the fresh tires and maybe under pressure to sort of get the best out of the tires you could. Was that what caused the issue for you as well?
Yeah, I think so. I was aware that I was sort of racing Henrik, and so I wanted to get my lap back off of him. I got past him okay, but then I came out of the corner a bit too hot, and there was another guy directly in front of me. So when I lifted, the back went light, and that was that. I was going round whatever happened. So yeah, I was a little bit annoyed by that, but it is what it is. Short track, and when you come out with those fresher tyres, you've got to make them work, get those seconds back as soon as you can.
And a last question. You didn't seem to quite find the pace in qualifying, but you were absolutely flying once the race got underway. What caused you to find that sort of speed so quickly once the race got underway?
I was messing a bit around with the setup. You can play with a couple of things like the brake bias and the steering ratio, but I just didn't have a very good lap in qualifying. For me, it was sort of almost incidental, because if you've got pace, you're going to be all right, but it's also about survival, isn't it?
Indeed it is. Well, thanks for joining us and taking the time to have a bit of a chat here post-race. Congratulations on a podium finish. Best of luck next week at Watkins Glen, and I hope to get another chance to chat to you.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks a lot, guys.
Indeed, that was Paul Gosling joining us for the last of our driver interviews for today, and that's going to be our the conclusion of tonight's broadcast as well. It's been a pleasure having you in again, Joe, as always. Is there anything you'd like to add here at the end of proceedings?
It's been a joy to be here once again, and like I said, I was pleasantly surprised at how clean the racing was out there today. I was glad to see these guys really took like ducks to water here in short track racing.
Well, indeed, I enjoyed it big time as well. It was great, and I hope to see Bristol back for future SRW NASCAR Cup Series seasons. And speaking of the future, here on Simracersworld TV, we've got the next round of the SRW F3 Series coming up on Thursday. That's at 8:45 p.m. Central European Time. Then we got a Sunday doubleheader with the Sunday GT Masters and the Sunday Drivers MX5, obviously on Sunday. And then, of course, in a week from now, as mentioned before, we'll be going to Watkins Glen for an exciting round of the SRW NASCAR Next Gen Cup Series. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and a big thank you to the legend that is Chaz Draycott for sponsoring this round. We haven't gotten around to mentioning it anywhere near enough, but Chaz, you know you're a legend. Thank you so much for all that you do for us here at Simracersworld TV. From Joe Peak and Hasse Reumann, it's been a big pleasure having you all along. Do like and subscribe if you liked what you've seen on the show here tonight. And with that said, until next time, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.